Hello, Year 5 and 6. Okay, so building on yesterday's lesson where you started to put together a bit of a plan, you've taken the story that we've read, the viewer, and we've looked at the key points. We've then looked at how, if we think that the viewer has continued through time and people keep getting drawn into falling into the same trap, then we've looked at how maybe the next character after Tristan may end up stumbling across the viewer and their story, their journey through from finding the viewer through to what they might see. So you've created a plan, okay, and now we're going to look at starting to write your own version. Okay, so today we're going to look at creating a main character, and we're not going to look at a setting. We're going to be looking at actually just the character today. So I want you to think back to your plan. The main character, okay, and partly the setting. We're not going to describe the setting today, but we need to think about actually where is that going to be. We need to introduce the idea of it. So within my story, okay, I wanted a young girl fascinated with inventing new objects. Okay, that was going to be my character. That's who I was going to develop. She wants to be an inventor. Then where I'm going to introduce my setting is that actually she always likes looking through car boot sales and antique shops for objects she could use within her invention. So antique shops, the antique shop is where my main setting is going to come from. Now what I want us to do is have a little look back through the very first page of text and see how they've set out, how they've introduced Tristan to us. And using that, we're going to then introduce our character in a very similar way. So, there's the text to read through. Could you please pause the video and read the text now, please? Okay, so let's have a look at some of the spelling and grammar within that. Let's unpick it. What are we going to be looking at today? So, looking back into that text, okay, what punctuation did you notice within that front page of the story? So what punctuation did the author like using? So let's have a look. Okay, we can spot a couple of things. So here, what's the author used here? You remember what they're called? Yeah, dashes. Okay, so dashes has been used here. We've added some extra information to the sentence. Okay, so we've got an apostrophe. Okay, why is the apostrophe after the S? Yeah, because we're showing possession, but it's his parents' house. Okay, so we wouldn't write parents' house. We just add the apostrophe after the S. Okay, so we've got lots of different, okay, bits of punctuation. We've used commas here in the same way, okay, where we've added some information, okay. Now, what I would like you to think about is parenthesis today. So within that opening chapter, the authors use lots of dashes, okay. Now, dashes aren't the only way that we can show parenthesis. And when you're writing, I'd like you to think about varying that. I think it becomes quite cluttered the way that the authors use the dashes all the time. I think it might be better if he used a range of punctuation. So dashes, okay, and commas can also be used in place of brackets. So we've got brackets, dashes, and commas that can be used for parenthesis. Now, remember when we're using parenthesis, the sentence must make sense without the information inside the punctuation that's used for parenthesis. So I miss seeing Amelia every day. That makes sense as a sentence. Now we've added the extra information. I miss seeing Amelia, my best friend from primary school, every day. Now, as it's shown here, we could use brackets, we could use commas to add that information, that extra clause, or we could use dashes. Now, there is a short video, okay, through this link. I will post that to Class Dojo. But if you type in discovery parenthesis video, you will see this video, okay? Might be a good idea to watch that just to recap before you start to write your own opening to the story. Now, let's have a look at what we've got here. So, I've taken the information from the first story, I've looked at it, I've read it, and then I thought, how am I going to apply that to my story? So I've written Isabel, who is going to be my main character, okay? And I've looked at this first story, the viewer story. Tristan was curious from birth. So straight away we've started with a short sentence that introduces and tells us something straight away about that character. Okay? They then go on to say, actually it's not very different, however, and then there's a bit of a change. So, here we go. This is what I've written. Isabel knew what she wanted to be when she grew up. This was not unusual. In fact, it was very ordinary. But, unlike most other children, she did not want to be an astronaut or a vet. She wanted to be an inventor. Ever since her trip to the Science Museum, her only visit to London, with her granddad, she knew that she wanted to be the first person to develop a device to transport people back in time. As she grew older, that should be in there, let's edit that. As she grew older, comma, she became more and more determined to succeed. So that is my first opening paragraph. Straight away within there, we've learned a lot about our character. Okay, so we know her name, we know what she wants to be, we know where that's come from, and we know that she's really, really driven, really determined. Now, all of those things are going to be really important as we go into the rest of the story. These are the things, these are the reasons why she's going to stumble across the viewer. She's going to pick up the viewer. She's going to use it, okay? All of this information we learn at the start is really important to the whole story. So then we go on. Her constant need to invent things had got her in a few sticky situations. And then we'll go on to add a couple of stories around situations she's got herself into where her need to invent things, so maybe close calls where she's nearly injured herself, or where she has invented things that have broken and not quite worked. So I'll add a couple of stories. Just in the way, we've got a couple of little stories in here about Tristan, where how being curious led him into some difficult situations. Now what I want you to do today is to go back to your plan from yesterday. I want you to look at the very first section, and I want you to take your information and then create your own start. You may take chunks of mine, okay? I've used two different types of parenthesis in here, okay? I've used a dash here to add some information. I've added it at the end of the sentence, okay? I've then used brackets here to add the parenthesis in the middle of the sentence. So play around with it. Use it in different ways. I've used lots of short sentences. So there's a full stop in here, which you struggle to see in this font. So I've got straight away 3 short sentences to open up, okay? Your first paragraph, and then I would like you to add a couple of stories, okay, that follow, okay, the viewer story. So I look forward to seeing them on Class Dojo later, and like we said, by the end of next week we will have built up your final outcome piece. So I look forward to seeing them. Thank